Hello, my dear friends. Welcome back to High Point again, our channel, and I hope all of you are doing great in your life. And also, you are slowly you are moving towards your goal of achieving UGC NET and JRF. So today in this video, we are going to discuss about Utopia. Utopia belongs to the age of revival that we all know, and it is written by Thomas More. So about Thomas More we have discussed in the previous video. Before going into the main content of the video, let me remind you about my website known as www.highpoint.in, where you will get 900 plus audio lectures for UGC NET English language and literature, and also related 300 plus downloadable PDFs about relevant subjects, and also practice question papers and all the previous question papers which you can attempt live in the website, and also know your progress and marks instantly at that time. When you finish your exam, you will know the marks. So let's move on. So and if you have any doubts, or if you want any queries related to the UGC NET exams, you can obviously join a WhatsApp group. I have given the WhatsApp group's link in the description box. You can click the link and join the WhatsApp group, and there you will get daily quizzes and notes and so many other things that I am planning. So let's move on. So Utopia, it was first written and it was composed by Thomas More in the year 1516 in Latin language. Okay, so about Utopia's basic kind of details I have already given when we have discussed Thomas More. Now, here comes Thomas More. Thomas More lived from 1478 to 1535, and he's the man behind Utopia, and he belongs to which age? He belongs to the revival, the age of revival of English literature, and he was a popular educationist of the time, and he held many royal authoritative positions, and politically his political career was very vibrant, but he got beheaded for not executed beheaded for committing treason, and he was later the Christian church, the Roman Catholic Church, actually canonized Thomas for. So Utopia originally written in Latin in 1516, that we have already seen. So it is originally written in Latin. See, Thomas More was a Latin and Greek scholar. He studied Latin and Greek language in the university in college. So originally he believed that Latin will regain its popularity in writing it as a language. Latin as a classical language, it will retain and it will come back to popularity. So after Chaucer, we have already seen that English was French was not the major language there, like in Anglo-Norman period. In Towards the end of the 15th century, we have already seen that English was announced as the national language of Britain. So in that way, popularity of English was slowly gaining, and nationality was among the mindset of the people. It was also slowly rising. Language plays a great role in rising nationality, and all that we all know. So but Thomas More was of the belief that Latin will regain its popularity and its authority as a classical language. But that's why he wrote his prestigious work Utopia in Latin in the year 1516. So when he used the word Utopia, he used the title Utopia, he really means that no place or nowhere. So Utopia is a place, that he describes in this work. Utopia is a place, it's an island, it's a name given to an island, and it is an ideal place that we could not find on this earth. So it's a place, and Utopia means at that time that it's a place, no place or nowhere. It's a place that we could not find anywhere. Such a place never exists in the on this planet. But in modern times, when we use Utopia now, in modern times, Utopia means an ideal place where everything is good is happening, everything ideal is happening, everything that is supreme is happening, everything that is well is happening. So such an ideal place is denoted by the word Utopia in the modern times. So Utopia, it's a work of satire. So primarily, in the primary sense, it is a work of satire that Thomas More indirectly criticizing Europe's political corruption and religious hypocrisy. So mainly, in order to indirectly cite the European political corruption and religious hypocrisy, he actually creates, Thomas More created a place known as Utopia, and he places all his ideal notions related to religion, civilization, humanity, and politics, and about many other things. He portrays in such a way that utopians practices all those ideal things. Okay, so mainly it's a work of satire indirectly criticizing Europe's political corruption and religious hypocrisy. It has two parts or two books. Okay, Utopia is divided into two parts or two books. First part is served as an introduction to the second part. So mainly he wrote the second part first. So Thomas More wrote the second part of Utopia first, then the first part, and first part is then introduction. It's more or less an introduction to the second part. So who is the narrator? Who is the narrator of Utopia? Narrator is Raphael Hitlode. So this is a character which is who is created by Thomas More. Narrator is Raphael Hitlode, and Thomas More himself is a character in it. Thomas More listens to Raphael Hitlode and his experiences that he had when he visited the island known as Utopia. So Hitlode claims that the island Utopia has an ideal human society. So he claims that he once visited, he often goes for adventures and voyages, and Hitlode once he reached the island of Utopia, and he claims that Utopia is a place where you can find everything ideal, and it's an ideal human society. He claims that. So, after hearing this, More discusses certain important social, political, religious questions with great insights. So, More discusses about many socio political, religious questions with great insights with the other people, including Hitler. And like I said, More wrote the second book first, then the first book. So he first wrote the main book. That means mainly in the second book about the island known as Utopia is discussed their manners, their living, their habits, how they organize as a society, what is their personal life. So in that way, everything is discussed about Utopia in the second book of Utopia. But that's why he wrote the second book first, then he wrote the first book, and first book is an introduction to the second book. And the book was translated from Latin to English in 1551 by Ralph Robinson. This I have seen this question, a question about this information in several previous question papers. So do memorize it. So it has written in 1516 in Latin, but it was translated from Latin to English in the year 1551, not by Thomas More, but by Raphael Robinson. And there were other translations were there. So another translations were done by Gilbert Burnet and Bishop Salisbury, and they published their translated work in 1684. And Cayley also have done another translation in 1808. So this, please remember this particular year if you could. If you cannot remember these two, but you have to remember this particular year 1551, a translation done by Ralph Robinson of Utopia from Latin to English. And the translations were done by Gilbert Burnet and Bishop Salisbury, and they published it in 1684, and Cayley published it in 1808. Okay. Now let's see the critical summary of book 1. So what is there in book 1, which serves as an introduction to the second book. So book 1 is an introduction to the second book, and More introduces a sailor called Raphael Hitlode in this work. So he introduces a sailor, he invents a character known as Raphael Hitlode, who has visited the island of Utopia. So Raphael Hitlode, he claims that he is a sailor. He has done many adventurous trips to many other lands on the planet. So he claims that he visited the island, a particular island known as Utopia. And Hitlode, the word Hitlode means versed in bubble or an ideal talker. Okay, Hitlode. So he even invented this character known as Raphael Hyplode. So More used this word Hyplode in his name, and Hyplode means versed in bubble or an ideal talker. Okay, remember it. And the book begins with Moore's introduction to Hyplode by his friend Peter Giles in a place known as Antwerp. So Moore got introduced to Hyplode by his friend, by Moore's friend Peter Giles. Okay, in a place known as Antwerp. So in a place known as Antwerp, Moore and Hyplode, they were introduced by Moore's friend Peter Giles. So with this introduction, book one of Utopia begins, and Hyplode has accompanied Americo Vespucci in his voyages. So, like I said, Hyplode has done many voyages, and he has visited many lands on the planet. So Hyplode has accompanied Americo Vespucci in his voyages. So Americo Vespucci is a famous voyager and adventurer of sea. He's a famous sailor, and he has he has entered into various lands which were quite unknown to the Europeans until that day. So Hyplode has accompanied Americo Vespucci in his voyages. Then More wanted to know Hyplode's experiences in various lands. So since More heard that Hyplode had visited many places, More wanted to know more about Hyplode's experiences in various lands. So the greater part of book 1 is dedicated to two topics. So we can see that in book 1, More is discussing, like I said, that More is discussing more about many philosophical, religious, cultural and social political things. So mainly in book 1, the main two topics we could see are why should man become thieves? Why should man become thieves? So this is the first question that all of the characters are discussing. And the second one is, should a philosopher take service under a prince? So these are the two questions that they are mainly discussing. These people, Hyplode, More, Giles, they are mainly discussing and listening to each other. Why should men become thieves, and should a philosopher take service under a prince? So, and also More shares some reflections as an under sheriff and a magistrate in London. So More shares his reflections and his experiences as he served as under sheriff and magistrate in London. And Hyplode made an acquaintance of Cardinal Morton in England, and at the table they discussed topics such as punishment for stealing. So they met. So Hyplode and More, Giles, all these people, Hyplode made an acquaintance. Hyplode comes to Cardinal Morton's residence in England, and at the dinner table, they discusses some topics such as punishment for stealing and why should men become thieves and all. And they discussed the root cause of becoming a thief. So why people, everybody knows that stealing is crime. If they caught, they will get punishments accordingly, and during that time punishment for stealing is very horrible. You cannot even, sometimes they lose their life for it. Even though out of hunger they steal some food, it is considered as a great crime. So they discuss why, by knowing this event, people, they become thieves, why they are becoming thieves. So they are discussing this topic. So they actually goes to the fundamental cause of a person becoming a thief. So they arrive at the root cause of becoming a thief like this, such as the luxurious life of the rich. And instead of, so the luxurious life of the rich is the major cause. So the poor people, they are seeing it and they could not afford it. So what they have to do, they have to steal it. Okay, so in that way, mainly the luxurious lifestyle of the rich people, and the rich people, they are not ready to share whatever they have with the poor. So because of that, that's the main cause of becoming a thief, root cause of becoming a thief. And they say that instead of hanging the thief, see, theft or stealing is a great crime during that time. There people get, people lost their life for stealing something. So instead of hanging the thieves, they can be used in war. See, these thieves, they are very useful in war, and instead of hanging them we can use them as prisoners, and we can use them their power in war. And because they are brave, in order to participate in a war one needs to be brave and courageous. So since the thieves are, they are very brave and courageous, that's why they could do stealing, and they could become a thief. So we can use their courage and brave in warfare instead of hanging them. So this was the general conclusion they discussed and they arrived at. And most of the discussion participants of the discussion, Hithlode, Moore, Gills, most of them were against hanging thieves from religious as well as humanistic point of view. So they were against it. Even if they do not use thieves in the war, most of them were against hanging thieves from religious as well as humanistic point of view. And More suggested Hithlode to become king's advisor, but he respectfully explains how he does not fit in the position. So, by seeing Hithlode as a very resourceful person, as a mature and very capable, skillful person, More suggests to Hithlode that you should become king's advisor. Okay, but Hithlode, he respectfully explains that how he is not fit in that position. He is a sailor. He has visited many places, and he has wisdom of many places, and he has a wisdom and maturity to advise and comment upon many things, but he is not fit in the position of a king's advisor. So he explains that. Hithlode explains his how he's not a fit in the position of a king's advisor to More. And Hithlode says that a king is a king for the people's sake, not for his sake. So Hithlode says that how the motivation of certain kings are led to some wrong ways. And Hithlode says that a king is a king. A king is a normal human being, but unlike other people, a king is a king of the land for the people's sake. For the people, for the cause of the people, he is a king, not for himself. But sometimes the king fights war out of his vanity. Sometimes the king actually forgets. Some kings, they forget about this thing that he is a king for the people's sake, for not for his own sake. But some kings, they at times they forget about it, and they fight wars out of his vanity to expand their territory, to show their power, to show their vanity. So out of his vanity, sometimes the king fights, which will actually bring many calamities to the land and people of the land. And he says, Hithlode further says that an ideal king should set an example to his subjects by his way of life. So the way and philosophy that he follows in his life, that should be, that should be an example for the subjects, for his own subjects. He also stressed the need for abolishing private property as it promotes a number of poor people in the society, and he praises utopians in this regard. So Hithlode also says that it is very much needed that we should abolish private property. Why? Because it will promote poverty. Certain amount of people will be rich always, certain amount of people, or major amount of the people in a society will be always poor. They cannot afford to become or have any private property. So once you don't have anyone does not possess any private property, then everyone is equal, right? Everyone has to live on their own efforts. And also it always stresses the need for abolishing private property in order to in order to bring an equality between people. And when he is stressing this idea of abolishing private property, he praises utopians. Okay, then he makes a comment upon utopians, and he praises the practices that he could see, that he was able to see when he visited the island known as Utopia. So there starts the discussions about Utopia. Okay, in book second. So book second contains mainly descriptions about utopians, and it is divided into various chapters that we could see. And the island of Utopia had an area of 200 miles. So from here we could see a detailed description of utopians, the land of Utopia and the people in it, and their way of conducting their life, their some beliefs and all. we could see, and it is detailed by Hithrodi in book 2nd. So first of all, island of Utopia had an area of 200 miles and 54 cities or shires were there. So the number of cities in Utopia is always the same, or not the cities actually. The number of people inside the cities will be always the same. If they exceed the number, they will create another city. So 54 was the city or shire's number in Utopia, and they were all speaking the same language. So the people in all the cities, they were speaking the same language and having the same manners and institutions and laws. So even though 54 cities or shires were there, everyone is speaking the same language and everyone is following the same manners, institutions and law. And Utopia, the island is surrounded by sea and it is naturally fenced and protected. So since the Utopia is surrounded by the sea, it is naturally fenced and protected. The island is named after King Utopus. See, the island Utopia is named after King Utopus, and the King Utopus is the founder of Utopia. And they had farm and houses, and men are working in corporations. So they have farm, houses, and everybody is working in corporation. And they had a very separate method for hatching eggs. They hatch eggs in a very different way, unlike the way that we are doing. They hatch the egg in different ways, and they practice barter system. There were no money, and they barter system means what? Before the practice of money, before we use money, the human beings, they used barter system, like I'll give one thing for you, one object for you. So calculating the value of that particular thing, you have to give back me, you have to give me something. So suppose I am going to give you a hen. I'll give you a hen and you have to give me some vegetable. Okay. So in that way, barter system happens. So the Utopians practiced a barter system. They had no money, and they choose their magistrates by secret election. So there they had magistrates, and they choose their magistrates by secret election. And the prince continued for life unless he was deposed by tyranny. So there were magistrates, and all magistrates were chosen by secret election, and the prince continues. So there is also a prince, and the prince continue for his life. So for a lifetime he will be a prince, but unless he was deposed by tyranny. So unless the prince becomes tyrannical or hypocritical, the prince can continue for his life as a prince. Otherwise he will be dethroned, or otherwise he won't be a prince anymore. And everyone should do farming. Agriculture is a universal labor in Utopia. Everyone should practice farming. And they learn science out of need, not of pleasure. So if only they need to learn something scientific, they'll learn. Otherwise, they won't learn. They don't learn science out of pleasure. Simply because you love to learn certain things, they don't learn. Especially science, they learn science out of need, not out of pleasure. But they could learn anything that they desire. So they have to do, everybody has to do farming or agriculture for a certain period of time every day. But they could learn anything that they want or they desire, but they don't generally learn science out of pleasure, but out of need. If they wanted to if they have some reason to learn science, then only they learn. Otherwise, for out of pleasure, they don't learn science usually. And all of them are dressed alike. They have a uniform kind of dressing style in Utopia, and learned men are called to offices. So some people, they are learned men more than agriculture, more than some such kind of knowledge. Some people also learn higher things. So such people are called to offices to manage the city, to manage the people and their life. And their work and games are balanced. So they do work, they do labor for a certain time period in each day, and they also they have time for doing some games, playing and relaxing and learning something, and they play intellectual games, rather dice games. So I have seen a question like, what is what game is not familiar for Utopia, something like that. I have seen a question like that, that it was dice games. So in that options given below, there were many games like this and that, but they were not familiar. They usually don't play, and they never play dice games. They are unaware about dice games. So, what is regarding the work? So, regarding the work, what are the things, rules that they are following? So, husbandry was a common occupation. Everybody has to do agriculture. Everybody has to do some farming. So, husbandry means agriculture only. So, husbandry was a common occupation that everybody should do. Then everyone must learn some occupation. So, other than agriculture, everyone should learn some occupation, some jobs they have to know how to do, such as cloth making in wool or wax or mercenary, they or smith skill. So they will learn any in some occupation other than labor, other than agricultural labor. They have to also learn some occupation, and usually they'll choose their father's profession. So they could learn any other skills they want. They can learn. They could learn any other occupation, any other skills, but most of them will choose to learn their own father's profession. And they sew their own clothes, so they have clothes alike. They have a very uniform fashion in Utopia as far as dressing style is concerned, and they sew their clothes their own. They sew their own clothes, and women are assigned easy works. Men are given more laborious works. So women, with considering their physical qualities and all, women were assigned easier work, and men were given more laborious and more effortful works. During the daytime, they work for 6 hours up to noon, or till dinner, or till afternoon they mainly work, and afternoon they also work. So for 6 hours they mainly work during the daytime, and then 2 hours rest. So after that they'll have 2 hours rest. Then in the second session, up to 8 o'clock in the evening, then they take supper, and they have to take 8 hours sleep. Okay, so in the first session they will work, maybe they will practice agriculture during the first session, and the second section is up to 8 o'clock in the evening. So after this 6 hours labor, they will have 2 hours break, and during this 2 hours of break of leisure, they can learn any skills according to their desire. So after the 6 hours work in the daytime, they will have 2 hours of rest, and during this 2 hour of leisure or rest, they can learn any other skill according to their desire. And in the second section, after this 2 hours rest, then begins the second section, and the second section ends 8 o'clock in the evening. So after that they will take supper, and they'll go for sleep for 8 hours. So that's how their day starts and ends. Then there will be common meetings were conducted in the morning. So if ever they need to conduct any common meeting, that will be conducted in the morning session. And during summer, people play after the supper. So during summer season, it will be very hot, so they could not go and sleep, very soon. So they will play after the supper. In the winter, in the common halls where they cook their supper. So during this winter season, they have common halls in each city. They have common halls where they will cook their supper, and they will serve together, and they have food together. They will have a community hall, and also there they can cook their supper, and they can have it together along with the other people of the city. And it was like no one could waste their time. They have to do something or other. So they cannot sit during the first session, that 6 hour. Then in the second session, during that leisure time, it is not that you are not expected to spend that 2 hours idly and just laying somewhere or taking rest. And you have to learn something. Everybody will learn something during that 2 hours. Then after the After 8 o'clock, then you will do some work. Then again you have to cook your supper. Then you have to go and sleep. So no one could waste their time. They have to use their time in a maximum way. And gamblings were not known to them. So like dice games, they are not well. They are not inclined to practice, or they don't like dice games. Gambling games were not also known to them. So another quality about utopians is utopians always maintain 6,000 families. And about women should get married in their lawful age. They have to go to their husbands also. Universally, it is always like that, right? Women should get married at their lawful age. Then they have to go to their husband's house. And the number of families permitted to have should not either increase or decrease. So the number of families permitted to have in a city, it should not be increased or it neither be decreased. Okay, so there is a certain number for the families that in a city can possess. Uh, so that permission to have a certain amount of families, that number should neither increase nor decrease. Then cities were permitted to have only a few number of children at the age between 10 and 16. No number were prescribed for the children below 10. So cities is like, cities were permitted to have only a few number of children at the age group between 10 and 16, and no number. So specifically there were no number prescribed for the number of children below 10. So it like that way. They have a certain range of number for every age group. So in that way, they are maintaining the number of families inside a city and in the island as such. When they create a new city, people are selected from the outnumbered cities to reside there. So they will create, if a city's number population increases or families number increases, then what will they do? They'll create another city, a new city for them, and people were selected from the outnumbered cities, or the cities with the outnumbered people. So people from such kind of cities were selected, and they were asked to they will be asked to reside in that new city. And what about crimes? Okay, so actions were taken against the rebels. Those who are rebelling against something, then actions will be taken against the rebels. And about the treatment of the sick people, how they will treat, how they see sick people, those who are diseased people. So for curable diseases, so about curable diseases, so these diseased people were comforted by others and looked after them carefully. So for curable diseases, so everyone together will be looking after that diseased people, and that person is comforted by others. For incurable diseases, so for incurable diseases, euthanasia was preferred. Euthanasia means you can have your death by willingly you can have your death. This is not suicide, but you will be some medicines will be injected, and something will be injected inside you, and you can have your death. And consulting the priest and magistrates, they such people with incurable disease, they are allowed to die in sleep, and this is considered as an honorable death. So in Utopia, euthanasia is practiced by consulting priests and magistrates only to those people, those who are affected by incurable diseases, and they are allowed to die in sleep. And this is considered euthanasia if one person who is affected by incurable disease, and he or she opts for euthanasia, then that death, euthanasia, is considered as an honorable death. Then suicide is contemptuous. If someone is doing committed suicide, that is very contemptuous. Such people are not buried inside the city. They are not buried and buried at all, but they are thrown out of the city for being stung. So this is what they will do to a dead body, or to a person's dead body who committed suicide. Suicide is considered as very contemptuous. It is not at all considered as a very normal death or honorable death, but suicide is contemptuous in Utopia, and such people, such dead bodies are not buried but thrown out of the city for being stung. And they consider iron more precious than gold because of the use value. So iron is more useful, right? Comparing iron and gold, iron is more powerful, iron is more strong than gold. So gold is only useful for making coins and making jewelry, such lucrative things. But iron is more useful. They could make any weapons out of iron, or weapons in the sense which is usable for agriculture. You know some tools out of iron, and they can use iron in many more sense, right? So considering the use value, iron is more precious for the Ethiopians than gold. And animals were slaughtered outside the city and meat was brought into the city. So animals were not slaughtered inside the city, but they were slaughtered and they were cleaned outside the city, and the meat was brought into the cities for cooking. Then they avoid war at any means. So some other party, they wanted to have a war with Ethiopians. They always try to avoid war at any means. So Ethiopians are not at all favoring any war. They do not favor war, Ethiopians, but they avoid war at any means. So if only they come to a verge that they could not just stand and watch, because other party will certainly is going to make an attack upon you, then only they will engage in war. Otherwise they will do every other attempts to avoid a war. And they had good idea about almost everything. So they scientifically they are well capable, and they have good idea about almost everything about politics, how to maintain a city, how to live a life, ideal life, and also they have idea about almost everything. And they do not consider hunting as a sport. For pleasure they don't do hunting, they don't do hunting, but they do only to have meat, to hunt. They hunt down animals to have meat, and to have food and all. So otherwise they don't do hunting, and they don't consider hunting as a sport for pleasure. And good Ethiopians god's name is Mitra. Okay, Ethiopians, they have a god and whose name is Mitra, but they also welcomed Christianity. They also condemned intolerance. So religious intolerance they cannot have. Everyone can have their own religion, their own God to worship and all. But religious tolerance between people, it is not tolerable. It is intolerance. Religious intolerance is highly condemned there. And they have the practice, they have the liberty to practice any religion. They have the liberty to practice any religion. Either they can worship Mitra, or they can worship Christ, or any other religion. Disbelievers or non-believers were there, and they were separated, but they are not punished if they were sincere even in their disbelief. So if they are truly disbelievers, no one will condemn them, no one will punish them. But disbelievers always get separated in the society, but they were not punished if they are truly a disbeliever. If they are sincere even in their disbelief, then they are not punished. And they also believed that beasts also had immortal soul. Like human beings, we all believe that human beings have immortal soul. Even though after our death, our body will be decayed, but our soul will remain immortal. So in that way, for such a thought, Utopian also possessed about beasts. So they believed that beasts also had immortal soul. And there were also women priests. Usually, men are only considered as priests in other societies, but here in Utopia, women priests were also there. And this book, so these are some of the major details related to Utopian, about their way, about their conduct of their island, the politics that they are practicing in Utopia. And this book was supported by socialist propagandists. So for socialist propagandists who actually believed some ideals which are discussed in Utopia, the book Utopia. So these socialist propagandists, they supported the book Utopia. And Utopia is never supported asceticism. This is another important factor about Utopia. So they never supported asceticism. And there are some other works which are there before Utopian and after Utopia came out. and discussing about utopian lands like Utopia. Okay, so other works about utopian lands. Plato's Republic is about a utopian land, and Gonzalo's Commonwealth in the Tempest. So in the Tempest, the character is there, Gonzalo, and Gonzalo talks about a commonwealth, which is a land where utopian ideals are practiced. So Gonzalo's Commonwealth in the Tempest. Tempest is a play by tragic comedy by Shakespeare. Okay, and Francis Bacon's New Atlantis. It again talks about utopian land by Francis Bacon's New Atlantis. Then Samuel Butler's Everborn. So Everborn, this word is created out of the word nowhere. So the nowhere, the words, the spellings of nowhere, the spelling of nowhere is changed. Its sequence is changed and created this word Everborn. So Samuel Butler's Everborn is another utopian work, and it discusses about utopian lands. And Jonathan Swift Gulliver Travels. Gulliver travels to many utopian lands. And William Morris's News from Nowhere is again talking about a utopian land. So do remember about these works: Plato's Republic, Gonzalo's Commonwealth in the Tempest, Bacon's The New Atlantis, Samuel Butler's Everborn, Jonathan Swift Gulliver's Travel, then William Morris News from Nowhere. Now, so that's all about Utopia. I hope that I have shared some details related to Utopia, and if you have taken notes, then that will be great. Otherwise, you try to remember and listen to the video more times, then it will be very easy for you to memorize. So if you have any doubts, queries, and doubts or suggestions, and if you want me to make any other topics related to UGC NET, JRF, English, language and literature, mention all of that in the comment section. I'll be waiting for your precious comments, relevant comments. And also you can visit my website www.highpoint.in to have more study materials related to UGC NET, JRF, English, language and literature. You can, if you visit there, you can have an idea about what you have to learn and what all things you have to learn by stressing and giving more importance. So you can have a look at the demo sessions. If you like, you can subscribe to the courses and you can follow. And if you subscribe to the courses, there will be many more things that will be given as bonus, like personal care and webinars. And also once you join the courses, you will know about it. And also you can have downloadable PDFs, 300 plus PDFs, so that you can keep and use in your career further. And also you can have a live test in the website in the form of previous and practice question papers. So if you have any doubts, let me know and let me meet you in the next video. If you like my video, please press the like button and also subscribe to my channel and share this video with your friends. And thank you for listening to my video, and let's meet in the next video. Bye bye. Thank you.